lovely. Maurice, are you there?
Hello there.
Good morning. What do you think about this? Do you think there is this, there needs to be something, a sort of line in the sand, so you cannot talk about women or girls in the way that frequently happens? And is that enforceable? Do you think we might see a culture change here?
I think we need to see a culture change. I think it's really good that prompted by these anonymous accounts of what's happened in our schools, that schools are taking notice of this. I do fear that it's. I feel that young people need somewhere that they can bring up these things that isn't with their school, because there is the danger that schools will try to suppress complaints so as not to get a bad reputation, because they all depend on loads of new kids coming each year. So I do feel like that kids need somewhere outside of school to be able to raise issues that they're uncomfortable with.
It's an interesting thing, so we just texted in. This is what we're talking about. Sarah says, I got my first teaching job in the mid-90s. The girls were virtually sex slaves to the boys. This attitude spilled over in the way the boys treated me too. Two nice boys once had a discussion about what they would do to me loudly whilst walking behind me. Their head of year had a chat with them as a sanction. Maurice, is this a matter for teachers to step in, that head of year in that example, or is it parents, or is it a combination of everyone?
Yeah, I think it's all of us as a society. The old adage of taking a village to raise a child. It's the teachers, yes, it's the head parents, but it's also peers. Young boys in particular need to be taught to stand up to their friends when they hear things, and parents need to be educated in how to address things in their male, in their kids. So yes, it needs all of us. But in that circumstance, of course the school should have stepped in. That's an appalling thing to be happening. And what does that lead to when those young boys become bigger men? What does that lead to?
Isn't it also the case, though, that schools are meant to be preparing young people to enter into the real world? And in the real world, if you behave like this nowadays, you are not going to be able to keep your job. So schools are fundamentally not just letting down women, but letting everybody down by allowing this sort of thing to go on, aren't they, Maurice?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm not sure that we're quite at the place where this sort of behaviour does lose you your job. Yes, if it's exposed, but it was still the case that most things, sadly, that women go through, whether in the workplace or socially, don't get reported. So we still need to have a societal shift, but starting off in the schools with zero tolerance is exactly the right way to go.
It is 9:20. This is Breakfast on Times Radio with Jenny Kleeman and Stig Abel.
Talking to Alice Thompson and Maurice Mcleod. And the other big story that we are talking about this morning is, of course, how lockdown is easing in England after restrictions changed in Wales over the weekend. You can now meet up with 6 people outside or gather as 2 households. You can also socialise in someone's garden. Maurice, is this going to revolutionise the way you live your life? Do you have big plans now?
I wouldn't say big plans, but I mean, I'm itching to play football and be a bit more active. I think my waistline can't really cope with me just being locked down at home anymore.
And were you adhering to the rules? This is one of the things we've been talking about. Do you think people have been adhering to the rules to the letter, waiting for the announcement, counting the number of people they can see, not hugging their parents? Is that realistic to assume that most people have been doing that, Maurice?
To be honest, I think most people have been pretty much adherent. I think certainly, at the start of lockdown, I think everyone was incredibly adherent. But as time's gone on, maybe rules bend slightly. But I've certainly adhered all the way through, even when it's been quite difficult, and I'm sure lots of other people have. So I think that the idea that spring's coming now and we're finally opening up will be. It's what we need for our mental health, really, isn't it?
Maurice, you're a good football player. If we watched you, would we be impressed? Are you?
I would bet there's no one in Britain who's played as much football as me who's as bad as me.
That's a good claim to fame, if ever there was. Let's move on to another story. Police race crisis. Front page of The Guardian today has an interview with the chair of National Police Chiefs Council, Martin Hewitt. The leader of Britain's police chief says legitimacy in black communities is so low it's damaging the effectiveness of law enforcement. We said that to David Lammy, Maurice, earlier on today, and he agreed. How bad a situation do you think it is at the moment?
I think it's bad, and it's been bad. It's been bad for a long time. The relationship between the police and certain communities, it's historically been strained, let's say. But this doesn't come out of nowhere. I mean, when there's disproportionate stop and search, disproportionate convictions, when certain communities feel as if the police aren't there to protect them, but they're there to corral them and make sure that they're doing the right thing, you end up with an attitude that the police aren't there on your side, which is a real shame, because I know some amazing policemen who really are very community minded. So I'm glad that this has been highlighted now.
What's the answer, though, do you think, Maurice? Because the one thing Lammy mentioned was a very small number of black senior police officers. Would that make a difference, or is that the sort of thing that looks like it makes a difference but doesn't?
Yeah, I think that diversity within the police force is always going to be a good thing. It's never going to hurt to have more officers with different sorts of backgrounds coming in, but it's not the be all and end all. Some of the things the police are asked to do, I think, which isn't their fault. You know, they're asked to police drugs in a way that they probably wouldn't want to if they didn't have to, and which creates community engagement. You know, and the new police bill it gives them power to decide what's kind of a legitimate protest. That's not the sort of thing the police should be deciding, and it puts them into this awkward position where they seem very political, and it's quite hard for them to rebuild trust with communities.
Alice, Jenny made the point earlier on this program, you wouldn't really want to be a police officer at the moment. It's a pretty tricky job policing different protests, this issue of race relations as well. Do you agree with that? It's a fairly thankless task, maybe at the best of times, but certainly now.
I do, actually. Yeah, I think it's very hard. Being a police officer is difficult anyway, and if you've got a community that sort of doesn't have faith in you, then that makes it ultimately harder.
Maurice, I wanted to ask you about this story that the government is looking to abolish the BAME or BAME term. I've never been comfortable with it anyway, and I don't know whether or not to call it BAME or BAME. What do you make of that?
This has come out from the government's delayed disparity commission, which they started after the Black Lives Matter movement last year. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, of course, BAME or BAME it's been problematic for ages. Lots of people, especially doing the stuff that I do, the activism type stuff I do, have been saying that it lumps everyone together and allows problems to go unseen, because you think, oh right, we've upped our BAME, we've upped our BAME diversity at work or whatever. What you've done is maybe employed 3 Asian guys from Oxbridge, so you haven't really done much to change the experience within the building, but you've, in a very tick box way, you've put some faces there. You still haven't got anyone Black Caribbean, or you haven't got anyone Bengali, for instance. So the term BAME, for ages, activism saying that it doesn't do its job. It just lumps everyone together and allows things to go unseen. So this is good. We need to do more, but this is good.
Yeah, and every radio station in this building, I think the newspapers too have said they're not going to use it as well. So I think there is a change that people are recognising it's no longer acceptable, which is probably a good thing. Maurice Mcleod, thank you very much indeed. From Race on the Agenda, and Times columnist Alice Thompson as well, going through the news stories. Monday's copy of the Times is on sale now. It's got everything you'd expect, including reporting from around the globe, coverage of all the weekend's sporting action, plus reviews, features and puzzles, and on and on and on.